giving these tools to these kids now at such an early age to learn how to meditate, to learn these healing techniques that I'm really getting into, like biotune forking and craniosacral therapy, and also sound therapy and sound baths, because that vibration just in
Right.
general and healing that nervous system is so beneficial.
Oh, welcome to Tune In Bond to Bloom. This is my second episode and first interview, and there's nobody better that I could have on here than Alli Bongianni. Alli and I met in 2019 when I started working at the hospital after I moved to Gilbert, Arizona. And Alli is an OT. And every time we worked together, I just loved it. She has this like bubbly personality, always positive, always fun. And we only worked together for 2 years because once COVID hit, she left to take care of her dad. And it was sad, but we have stayed in touch. And interestingly, we're both kind of doing the same thing right now. So, Allie, welcome. And I want you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for that introduction. And I'm so excited to be here. And yeah, I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, specializing in neurodivergent kids. Um, Although I work with all populations, I have my own private practice called Mindful Motion Therapy and Consulting, and I am home based. I do community based as well. And I'm also working with kids with school OT and then home based OT goals as well. And then I do parent coaching on the side as well, part of the practice.
Wow. So, how did you like, because when we worked together, we worked with adults in the hospital. So, what made you want to move into pediatrics?
Well, funnily enough, I actually like went directly from grad school into pediatrics. And so I had always been working in pediatrics during the week. And then I was working at the hospital on the weekends, PRN, just to keep my skills up in the adult and geriatric population. So
Gotcha.
peds has always been like my forte. And then the adults has always been like my just on the side.
Like side gig, yeah. So the thing that really, I mean, Allie and I were friends when we worked together, but the thing that really I want to say attracted me to her, or like where we bonded, was her the way that she parented her children. So she was very face forward, I guess, on social media about things challenges and obstacles and things that she went through with her own children. And it was fascinating to kind of see the transformation in things that she struggled with them in the beginning, and then like things that they're doing now through her tuning in is what I'm going to call it. So I'd love you to talk a little bit about your kids if you're okay with that, like how old they are now and struggles that you went through and things like that. That would be fantastic.
Absolutely. So we are a neurodivergent family. All of us, we all have ADHD. So that has its own dynamics, having two parents with ADHD and then two children with ADHD. So, and one thing that I'm kind of focusing on now is how to support more parents, as opposed to just supporting the children. I would say that with ADHD comes anxiety, and a lot of that has to do with sensory processing and sensory processing challenges or sensory processing disorder, which is not recognized in the DSM 5. However, it is a real thing, and that drives our kids, their emotional regulation habits. And so, if their nervous system is in that sympathetic state, it's hard to get them into a learning state. And I also because I was taking care of my elderly father, I homeschooled my children for 4.5 years. And so being their teacher, as well as being their educator, being their occupational therapist, and then being their mom, and trying to delineate and help them in all of those different areas. But I really got to just know their quirks and their ticks when, as a sensory integration therapist, we're looking at the most subtle, minute changes in a child's reaction to different situations. And that can be like the dilating of their eyes. And so I would start to notice them. And even though that I have sensory processing disorder and challenges, And there are similar quirks and kinks, and genes are so funny that some of the things that I hadn't done since I was a kid, I see in my kids doing, and it's just bizarre and weird. But I would really notice those and then be able to either front load it with a calming activity, usually proprioception, and that those nerve receptors in our muscles and joints. And when we push and pull, they really ground us. And so I use that as like my go to for emotional regulation, and being able to help them emotionally regulate themselves
Yeah.
as
Can
well.
you give me an example of an activity, of
Oh
like
my
a proprioceptive activity that you would do with them that worked?
Yes, absolutely. So I would have them unload the dryer into a
Mhm.
basket, and then I would have them my youngest would push the basket to the stairs, and then my oldest would pick up the basket and he would pull it up the stairs.
So
So just
heavy work.
heavy work. Yep.
Yeah.
Just incorporated that into the day. And then the other two, anytime that their nervous system would start to go, and now it's so different. There's signs and signals from when they were a toddler versus now I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. And a lot of that dysregulation comes out in talking back or being rude, that we
Mhm.
see. And it's kind of having to decipher whether or not this is sensory or if this is a behavior, or if we're
Right.
truly emotionally dysregulated.
Right.
So doing that work when the kids are so young and really finding out and being in tune with them helps when you get to that older years and you're trying to navigate those kind of tricky situations.
Yeah, for sure. What about, like, can you give me an example of like when things didn't go well, like something that maybe you weren't tuning in, or their reaction to something, if you were, something was going on in your life, like when your father passed away? I'm sure it was a really hard time for you.
Oh gosh, yes. I funnily enough, I just realized over the summer, I hadn't really known if my son had watched all of the Star Wars. And my husband said, "Oh, yes, Allie, this is what we like. We submerged ourselves into Star Wars land when Pop Pop died."
Mm,
And so that's kind of how they used and coped with that. But I mean, I'll be honest, I had so much help after he passed away because I was having to pack up and just deal with
right.
all the legalities and stuff that comes along with a parent passing. But I think one of my biggest Achilles heel in my parenting journey has been trying to fix a situation too soon.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
or trying to rectify it or trying to teach or trying to do anything
Yeah.
too soon. And then also like ignoring, just flat out ignoring behaviors and only praising the good behaviors. And that's really hard for some of us who grew up in a very um authoritarian household. And so our own journey and how we grew up kind of shapes how we parent, and some things we like and some things we don't like. And so trying to change that, but making sure that I, along with a lot of other people, will swing from one pendulum to the other. So it's really trying to find that middle ground in our parenting, and as quickly as possible, to create that stability that our kids so desperately need.
Yeah, and for me, I think like my kids have been the one that have taught me to tune in. Like I used this in my first episode when we moved to Seattle. Literally went kicking and screaming. I did not want to go. There were so many reasons why I didn't want to go, and I was so dysregulated the first 6, 9 months that I was there. I was a lot of crying, a lot of raising my voice, a lot of punishing because I just wasn't happy there. And at one point, like I could see the kids kind of like, I don't want to say fearing me because that wasn't it, but they're kind of like, what is going on with mom? Like she's a hot mess. And so I kind of like I like made a pact to myself that I was going to get it together. But to this day, they will still, I guess I'll say, call me out on behaviors that if I am trying to fix, or if I am trying to, if I'm belittling them, because my kids are 14, 18, and 19 now, and like they don't need me treating them like a 8-year-old, but it's nobody. tells you how hard it is to transition from like your kid's age to teenage age. They don't need me doing, and like I was probably babying them a little bit longer than I should have because I'm not recognizing that they're transitioning out of that. So,
Yes.
but they'll be the first to call me out on it, and luckily I would pay attention to that instead of fighting them about it. I'd be like, "Wait, maybe I should check myself. Maybe that what they're saying is truly this is what they need, and just because I want them to do X, Y, and Z doesn't mean that's the right thing to do." Now they kind of have a say in their life,
Yeah.
and and but they've been the first ones to be like, "Mom, that I don't need you to do that for me. Please." Like they'll call me, "Don't be the pick me mom." And I'm like, "Okay." So I love that they do call me out on that, but then at the same time I love that I'm aware that what they're asking for is something that they need instead of me trying to run their life for them, right?
1000%. I love that. We have a code word too because I tend to be really harsh sometimes with my punishments instead of
Mhm.
like those natural consequences. And that's
Yeah.
another like something that as a parent that I'm constantly working on is making sure that they're natural consequences, they correlate. But
Mhm.
in practice, it's easier said than done.
Right. Right.
And
As we get triggered.
as we get triggered, yes.
Right.
And so my son has the word harsh, and he'll say to me, Mom, harsh. And then I'll stop, I'll pause, I'll be like, okay, buddy, thanks. Why don't we take a 5-minute break and let's come back and we'll reconvene and we'll continue this conversation to where
I
I can.
love that. I
Yes,
love
and
that.
so we're getting to that transition. He's 10, and so we're getting to that transition of having that open dialogue to where he can call me out too, because we have these patterns that, we have developed, and, sometimes we need someone to just say, "Stop, let's not continue these behaviors and these patterns, and let's work together." So that's so wonderful.
What a beautiful skill for them to like learn and going into teenage and adulthood. Like what a gift. Um, Tell me a little bit more about your business. What type of I know you do a lot of sensory processing disorder with kids, but like what are the main things that you see in your practice?
Um as far as like interventions go, I do a lot of primitive reflex integration. And that's something that I have found that drives a lot of these challenges that the kids are facing, even to bedwetting at nighttime and having that spinal galant reflex. So, primitive reflex integration, sensory processing integration, emotional regulation tools.
Yeah.
Um, Binocular vision dysfunction and doing just working a lot on ocular motor and really integrating that into our bilateral coordination and our left and right side talking to each other. I do feeding therapy. I work with a lot of kids who have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, who have POTS, dysautonomia, so energy conservation, joint protection, bracing, things like that, and a the neurodivergent population is more susceptible to those comorbidities. So that's they kind of all tie in together.
Wow, that sounds so rewarding.
It is. I love it so much, and it helps my children too. So
Right.
and me,
Yeah.
I do the exercises too.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. We're always learning. Our children are like our best teachers. That so true about that. I'm taking this healing course right now, and it's kind of healing your past and just everything, and so much of it is what we do with our children, not like you said, not necessarily wanting to repeat patterns, but you have to be aware of it first before you recognize that you're even trying to repeat it.
Yes. I mean, I didn't even learn about meditation until I was in college, or even it might have been post college that I learned
Yeah.
about meditation. And just giving these tools to these kids now at such an early age to learn how to meditate, to learn these healing techniques that I'm really getting into, like biotune forking and craniosacral therapy, and also sound therapy and sound baths, because that vibration just in
Right.
general and healing that nervous system is so beneficial.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and just processing your emotions, just letting your emotions come in. I mean, we were not taught that. Nobody talked about that back in the day, and now it's the absolute secret sauce of my healing, in terms of letting the emotion come in, because and it's energy in motion. It's just going to go through if I'm not trying to suppress it, or I'm not keeping it alive by ruminating about it over and over. And it's been the number one thing for my healing. So I love all that. So if you could leave parents with any tip, what's one that you would share?
Really trying to manage your time better so that you can be emotionally and physically present with your kids. Because if you are, then we are responding and we're not reacting. And I think that that's, as parents, that is our number one tool, is to respond and not react. But we can't do that if we're not present. And also, just to fill up your own cup. As
Yeah.
someone who, I took care of my elderly father, and he passed away at 91 years old and was tube fed. With raising newborn babies, I put myself on the back burner for so long. And then really, when I put myself on the forefront of that and being able to fill my own cup, I was able to be a better parent, tenfold.
I love that. That's so, so important. I think as moms, especially, we tend to always, put the kids first, but and we should to a certain extent, but we really need to take care of ourselves to be better parents, better moms.
Yes, 1000%. Yeah.
Well, this was awesome. Thank you so much for your time, your honesty, your vulnerability, your courage, all of it. And I look forward to meeting with you in the future and collaborating on whatever we're going to do with business.
I love it, Nicole. Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. Have a great day, Allie.
Yes, you too. Bye now.